So we may see a shift in the narrative that's coming out of Russian media. Traditionally, Russian media is Russia can do no wrong. Everything is amazing in the country. They're all powerful. We see this all the time when I post videos and we watch the various news outlets in Russia. Meduza, which is a Russian language news outlet in Latvia, has recently come into possession of copies of the new guidelines that are issued by the Putin administration to these media outlets, to these Russian media outlets. And one of the directives is discussing how pro-government news outlets in Russia can cover the upcoming anticipated counteroffensive in Ukraine. Now, this document apparently instructs reporters not to downplay the potential for Ukrainian success. Now, if you've watched a lot of the media previously, a lot of it comes with this idea that Ukraine is losing, it's just a matter of time, everything is going well, etc., etc. Sometimes you see some cracks in that, but a lot of the time that is to try and bolster support for the war effort. This time they're trying to downplay or to not downplay the Ukrainian successes and potentially talk about how Kyiv is prepared for this counteroffensive. It could be successful, and that these news outlets should underscore the support Ukraine is receiving from Western countries such as the United States or those countries in Europe in terms of weaponry and intelligence and training. Two sources close to Putin told Meduza that there's really a simple explanation for why there would be a shift in the narrative coming out of the Kremlin. And it makes a lot of sense. If the offensive operations from Ukraine they fail, Russian authorities and the Kremlin can come out and say it was the ability of the Russian army to adeptly repel an extremely powerful attack, and the value of this victory will increase tenfold for them. It'll make them look strong and powerful. However, if Ukraine, with the help of the US and Europe, is successful and takes a lot of territory, even cuts off Crimea, the loss will be explainable, saying that, after all, the West has focused a tremendous amount of resources and effort to Ukraine, such as weapons, money, training, intelligence. And when compared to those efforts, the gains that Ukraine recently got were still very modest. So they want to frame it as the Russian army held its own but had to retreat from these areas in the face of an overwhelming amount of spending and weapons that really didn't gain them very much territory. So that's the two ways they could frame this. So in the preparation, the Russian media is going to be talking about how this counteroffensive could be successful for Ukraine. And I can tell you right now, if the Kremlin actually thought there was any chance that the Russians were going to win this fight, they would not be pushing a narrative. They would be talking about the rah-rah, still, we are all powerful and strong. But I do believe the Kremlin truly thinks there is problems now on the front line. They have a real chance of losing this war. And so they're trying to now shift the narrative to go away from Russia's losing to Ukraine to Russia's losing to the collective West. And it's very difficult to outspend, out-manufacture, and out everything dealing with military, the United States, let alone the collective NATO countries. So we'll see. We'll see if the news outlets change their tone. I am increasingly interested in what Solovoyev has to say, because he has somewhat broken ranks and gone to an extremist level of rhetoric when it comes to not only propping Russia up in its successes, but amplifying and even flat out lying about failure or the failures that come out of Ukraine or NATO. And those failures in general recently have been few and far between, but they amplify them to a ludicrous level. So we'll see, and I'll keep an eye on these Russian media outlets and post them as I see them.